This Paladin, though. Will it get eaten by crabs? Or will it find its way past the crabs and take a win somewhere?
Hello everyone and welcome back to the second episode of Analyze the Pros. Our game today takes place in the grand finals of the Europe vs China tournament. The stakes are high and everything's to play for with a Ferrari on the line. Deck lists are known for this tournament and I'm sure both players have studied them intensely, so let's do the same and have a look at them now. First off, let's start with Dog, who's running a mid-range hunter. He's running 6 1-drops and 6 2-drops for a consistent early game, most notable of which are 2 Hungry Crabs, which are okay in most matchups being a 1-drop beast, but are potentially game-winning against a Murloc deck, which he just happens to be against now. What I don't like is that Dog has included a lot of one-off tech cards in his hunter deck. This can be fine in a deck that has a lot of card draw or the matches last a long time, for instance, but with hunter, games tend to be decided by around turn 8 or 9 at the latest, and you've only seen about 1/3 of your deck at that point. Include too many tech cards, and you start to hurt your strategy of taking the board and curving out strongly. Take one bow, one deadly shot for instance. Deadly shot is potentially great in the mid to late game when you can destroy one large threat. This situation doesn't happen that often, and in general it's going to be kind of a mediocre card. Bow on the other hand is a lot more flexible and it has great early game tempo removal, as well as the ability to push face damage on later in the game, making it an overall better pick. Moving on to X-Hope, and he's running a fairly standard mid-range Paladin. The one-ofs in this instance are a bit more justified because the games tend to last longer, it's a grindy sort of deck. You also have cards like the Curator which can fetch them out of your deck, making the draw a lot more consistent. He is running only 1 equality, which your opponent might take advantage of by spreading further onto the board where they otherwise wouldn't. And with that, let's jump straight into the action of this super car showdown.
Alright, well that is technically...
Starting with X-Hope Mulligan, and it's fairly simple. You want to toss it away and get the highest chance of getting a 1 or 2 drop, given that you only run 2 1-drops and 4 2-drops in total. Onto Dog as the hunter, and the only card you could potentially keep here would be Firefly. I'd advise against it in this situation. The 1-2 body kind of trades poorly into any of the Paladin's 1s or 2s. Additionally, you don't have any beast synergy, so you can't use Crackling Razormaw to trade up with it. Furthermore, you're against a Murloc Paladin, so let's maximise the chance of getting that Hungry Crab.
It was Hungry Crab, you know?
Yeah, throws it away looking for the Hungry Crab.
I like the decision to throw it away.
Yeah.
Firefly on 1's okay, but you have 6 1-drops and you're on the coin, so even if you miss your 1, you might coin 2 into 2, and Hungry Crab, that's how you win.
Yep, that's the reason why you're playing the deck.
Turn 1 as a Paladin, and you just have to play the 1-drop, not much real choice here. You can't really hold it back. Yeah, sometimes you can get crabbed when you play it, and that's kind of just a risk you have to take. If you hold it in hand, you just risk losing out to Hunter's regular early game. And if they don't have the crab, the 1-3 body is going to trade incredibly well with their board, and you have the potential to snowball with your other Murloc effects.
Dog's hand does look like it's the kind of hand that could lose.
Yeah, it is a garbage hand.
Does not curve out well on turns 1 and 2. Hey, never mind.
Boom! There's a W.
Dog in perfect one-time fashion rips the 2 hour for the Hungry Crab. It makes perfect sense to play here. Unlike the last video, you save the coin and you develop a 3-4 body, which is great at trading into the Paladin's upcoming turns.
And
you hear the crowd in the background.
That's game 1 for Dog.
As soon as he drew it, Hope's eyes opened wide up because I guarantee you he could like see and feel the crowd jumping up and down.
And that's why you full mulligan for Hungry Crab, you know?
Yeah.
If you'd seen 1 less card.
On to Hunter's turn 2, and they have a couple of options. You don't really want to play the Hyena here, as no beasts are really likely to die in the upcoming turns, and it's going to remain as a 2-2. The only real choice is between Grandma or coining the Animal Companion to put more stats on the board immediately. The problem with playing Companion now is that you use the coin, which is a flexible tool in smoothing out your future turns. Additionally, it can be hard to activate your Hyena, as generally 4 health creatures are hard to kill at this stage of the game. Also, only 2 out of the 3 companions are kind of attractive right now. It might be better to save the card for later on when you have a wider board, or you can utilise Leok as well. Grandma is an attractive option this turn. You get to save the coin, allowing you potential plays like Coin Houndmaster if you were to draw it, or double 2-drop. It also is potentially good for buffing your Hyena immediately to get outside of Consecration range and start putting more pressure on your opponent. Grandma is generally a great tool for wrestling control of the board. You can have a sticky body which you can use Houndmaster or Razormaw on. You could also use it as an anti-AoE tool. You put it down next to a board, and if they do AoE you, you'll at least have a 3-2 left over on. The only problem with the card is that it's only a 1-1, and if you have board control you're not putting too much pressure on your opponent. Given the current situation, we're actually completely ahead on board and board control is just ours. We just want to be putting the most stats on the board to close the game out as quickly as possible before we get into the more powerful turns that the Paladin can do. To do this we have to just coin the Animal Companion, and it lines up quite nicely because next turn we can clear any sort of 3-drop the opponent does with either the Companion or a bow, and then going into turn 4 we can do double 2-drop or something better if we were to draw it. So really the crux of this turn comes down to understanding where we are at in the game and what we're supposed to be doing in the future turns, and that really is that we're completely ahead on board. We don't need to add to our board control options. All we need to do is add attack to the board and start pushing face damage to close the game out as quickly as possible.
I don't know. How do you lose this game if you're dog? It's not how do you win this game, how do you lose it?
Right, well that was the question I was asking at the beginning of the entire series, and here we are. 3-0 for Hope currently.
The next turn for the Paladin is fairly simple. The War Leader directly contests the 3-3. It's mana efficient. Additionally, you want to save the Rockpool Hunter to play it with a buff immediately, and the buff is permanent unlike the War Leaders.
So, maybe we'll find out.
Wheelhorn Bow's good, Hyena Coin Grandma's good.
Yeah, it's all good. This hand
So you're thinking about True Silver next turn.
Right.
That makes me like the bow better.
Looking at Hunter's turn 3, and one thing is clear, we have to clear this War Leader. We don't want them to have any buffs via Megasaur or any Murlocs. So we just have to figure out the best way of doing that while simultaneously putting as much pressure on the opponent as we can. Looking at our opponent's turn 4, and if they play any sort of combination of minions, no matter what they are, we're going to have a very efficient way of dealing with it, whilst also snowballing our board, and we'll have so much pressure on the opponent that with this line we're just going to win pretty much all the time. So instead of worrying about that, we should be thinking about the potentially winning lines that the opponent can do, and realistically there's only one, which is True Silver Champion. So Bow kind of looks attractive in that it cleanly kills a 3-3, where it gets pushed 4 face damage. The problem is if they play True Silver Champion, they remove our Crab, and all we have is a 1-1 to push face damage, and our Bow hasn't got any targets as they haven't played any minions. Because of the mechanics of True Silver Champion in that it heals before it attacks, and the hard cap of 30, 28 health is exactly the same as 30 health, so if you've put your opponent on 26, you've really only dealt 2 points of damage if you expect True Silver to come out. Let's look at making a big Hyena. We can play the Hyena and then kill off the Grandma and the Crab, removing the Murloc, and coin out the 1-1 as well, leaving us with a board of a 6-4, a 3-2, and a 1-1. Yes, the opponent can still kill the Hyena with a True Silver, but they take 6 damage in the process, whereas with the other line, they take only 5. Additionally, we'll have 4 attack remaining on the board, whereas in the other line we'd only have 1. This really kind of resonates with our plan of putting the most pressure on the opponent, as we already recognise that we're ahead of the board and we're still going to stay that way. This does leave our next turn kind of mana inefficient unless we top deck. It's fine, we're probably going to play Animal Companion. Even though it dies to the True Silver, we push a lot of damage. And then if we draw a 2-drop, we can just combine that with a 3-drop on turn 5 anyway, and missing out on our turn 4 is not too big of an issue when we're pushing so much face damage.
Yeah, can't argue with that. I like the patience. Take time. Think through your turn. Grand finals.
Yeah. You'd hate to blow a Hungry Crab on one perfect curve kind of game. Here's the True Silver.
Hope's not
too
out
much
of it.
pressure on. Yeah, no. He's not under a lot of pressure here. He's got some time to figure something out.
Right. Double Rock Pool into Spike Ridge Steed. Spike Ridge Steed is a good card.
I think the clear plan now is to try and set up a big hyena. The best way to do that is to play the second Grandma. We can also coin out the Animal Companion, which will push out a bit more face damage, whilst also soaking up the last charge of the True Silver, paving the way for our hyena to possibly live. Next turn we'll have 3 mana available for a kill command, which coupled with a bow and our 2 Grandmas will ensure the opponent's board is completely empty going into their turn 6, so they cannot land a Spike Ridge Steed.
If he can land that on 6, he's got a decent chance.
I like this companion Grandma turn. Trying to set up for a bigger hyena. Trying to get the hyena stick past the True Silver. Leok was the worst of the 3 companions. It pushed 3 damage. Misha pushed 4, and Huffer pushed 8.
For Paladin's turn, he has to use the True Silver on Leok, that much is obvious. But for the rest of the turn, I want to talk a little bit about a concept in Hearthstone about reading and disrupting your opponent's mana curve. So the concept is you basically want to be developing threats / minions on turns where your opponent wants to be developing threats and minions themselves, and you don't want to be developing minions on turns where your opponent's pretty happy to be playing removal. So how does this apply to this specific game? Well, we know we're probably going to be playing True Silver either this turn or next turn, and we're probably playing the 2/2 drops as well. All we have to decide is what order we want to do it in. Normally when you play a weapon you want it to have charge, i.e. you can attack immediately, and if we equip it this turn we don't get that benefit. However, there are other reasons to consider here which might outweigh this. So let's look at the Hunter's turn and see what they want to be really doing. On turn 6 is the turn they want to be developing a high main, or like a Howlmaster and 2-drop, that sort of thing, and they can kind of very efficiently develop a threat that turn. But on turn 5 they don't really have much available. They have a lot of 3-cost cards which are mostly removal, like Kill Command or Deadly Shot, and their 5-drops work a lot better if we put minions on our side of the board as well. So by not actually playing minions this turn and equipping the True Silver, which we're going to do anyway, we kind of increase the chance that opponent has a poor turn of their own. And then going into turn 6, when we develop our minions, and they want to be developing things like Savannah Highmane, they're forced to use their removal that turn, making their turn a lot more inefficient. Additionally, one small but perhaps I'm not going to be able to say that word. Additionally, one small but negligible benefit. Additionally, one small but perhaps trivial benefit is that if you draw Hydrologist, or even just your hero power, you get the extra +1/+1 buff from your first Rockpool Hunter if you play the minions on your turn 6.
Without the hyena coming down, can
Double
one of these
Rockpool
stick?
into another True Silver.
Yeah.
Or into a Steed.
Into a Steed, yeah.
I was kind of assuming this is going to die, like Kill Command Hyena, right?
Yeah.
On to turn 5, and we have to fully go ahead with our hyena plan. We want to definitely remove our opponent's board so they can't get any Murloc shenanigans or a Spike Ridge Steed. The only question is if we want to sacrifice 2 Grandmas or just the 1. Sacrificing 2 puts more pressure on the board, but it leaves you a little bit more vulnerable to Equality Consecration, even though Equality is just a 1 of, and a little bit more weak to Sunkeeper Tarim, although that's not so bad as we have a good answer for that in the form of Kill Command. Additionally, by only popping 1 of the Grandmas, if our opponent were to say Aldor our Hyena, we could then rebuff it with the second Grandma the next turn. So all in all, I think maybe hedging your bets a little bit and only popping 1 of the Grandmas here and perhaps popping the next one next turn might be the best play. Not popping any of the Grandmas I'm not a huge fan of. Firstly, if the opponent has a second True Silver, you only have 2 1/1s as pressure. Secondly, if he has a Kodo and he is in a desperate situation, he can just try and go in for a 1-3 to win the game. Thirdly, one of the most important things is that he has Finger, then you can't actually pop your Grandmas, and his Finger is going to be able to trade into your Hyena on the turn after, and you're going to lose board control.
Yeah, it's gonna die.
Now, do you suicide 1 Grandma to buff your Hyena out of Consecration range? It also, turns your Grandma into a higher attack minion. Dog didn't think about it much. I guess Consecration's a pretty horrible play on this board.
Right, but the True Silver is really good play on this board because Dog's got 2 power in play.
Yeah. Yeah. Dog may actually run out of steam and lose this one, huh?
Right. Not activating
Oh
these
my
grandmas
God.
lowers his amount of pressure. He pushes 2 less damage with the hyena going face there, and he pushes 2 less damage this turn too. So he's kind of like missing 4. But
Is he really gonna not trade with grandmas? Okay.
he really. All right, there we go.
Okay, he did
Trade with him finally.
把你吃掉了。
He's got a really
I think-
sticky board though. It's gonna keep
I
getting
think
in chip.
Hope's
Oh my
just
gosh.
gonna 4-0 sweep.
Not too much to talk about on the last couple of turns, but Finja is an incredible pickup here. It's going to allow him to try and regain board control and activate that Spike Ridge Steed and some of his 8-drops. The only thing he's got to dodge is Deadly Shot and Stampeding Kodo from the opponent.
Yeah, he's gonna be able to land Spike Ridge Steed next turn and just taunt up the Finja, pulling out War Leader, buffing the Finja. Well, maybe not pulling out War Leader, but he might be able to. Or he even has Light Lord that could come down. He doesn't have enough pressure coming at him.
Is Paladin seriously gonna beat Hungry Crab on 1 into a perfect curve, just spending all of his mana every turn until 7?
Well, that's because he's not activated the Grandmas early enough. He's missed little bits of chip damage here and there all the
He
way
likes
up.
his grandma too much. That's Dog's problem.
He needs to let Grandma go.
Grandma's gotta die. You know what I mean? Say goodbye to Grandma. There we go. You're late though.
一口把你吃掉吧。
It's these little points of damage that you miss throughout the game that end up deciding everything.
Paladin's turn 8, we're obviously going to be trading the Finja. We're probably going to be playing Spike Ridge Steed as well. So I think we can start off by killing off the 3-2, which is the largest attack on the opponent's board, and then go from there.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
So Rag Light Lord would be a big mistake because it could potentially heal a minion. Which that's probably still going to work out for you.
Right, so Finja pulled out a 1-3 and a 2-2. All we have to decide now is what to put the Spike Ridge Steed onto. We don't want to put it on Finja because A, it's got less health, and B, we don't really want it to die. We want to use it to trade and pull out the War Leaders next turn. So in terms of putting it on either the 1-3 or the 2-2, I think health, we're fine. They generally won't be able to get through both the Murloc taunt and the 2-6 taunt efficiently. But if we put it on the 2-2, it means that if he buffs, say, his Rat Pack with a Houndmaster, he won't be able to value trade into it.
you like
That Steed on the Vilefin Inquisitor where it has the most health.
And then that protects the Finja, allowing you to pull out the War Leader on the next turn, hopefully, which can then activate your Murlocs on board. And you hero powered this way too, squeezing out an additional Murloc that can get buffed by the War Leader they're trying to pull out.
出我的头！
So what can Dog draw to get back into this game where he played Hungry Crab on turn 1, killing a Vilefin Inquisitor?
He needs the second Hungry Crab.
Oh my god.
And Hope's playing around that right now by playing... That's what he's playing around, right?
立即行动！
He throws out the Stonehill Defender, even though the Spike Ridge Steed's a stronger play on the board, because he doesn't want Hungry Crab coming down on his Murloc. He feels he's in a commanding of enough lead at this position that he can play around the second Hungry Crab.
X-Hope chose to play the Stonehill Defender this turn, and it's something I really cannot get behind. Not only do you have the potential to be offered 3 taunts which you can't even play this turn, but even if you get the best taunt, you're going to have less effective health with the Stonehill and the new taunt than you would with just a Steed on its own. Additionally, they're both going to trade worse against the opponent's board. The only reason I could think for him making this play is if he's playing around a Hungry Crab or a Deadly Shot from the opponent. But if he's been paying attention, the card in Dog's hand has been in there since the Mulligan, and he's had plenty of turns to use it against more Murlocs, so it's not a Hungry Crab, and he let this Finja live, so it's very unlikely to be a Deadly Shot as well. Additionally, even if those cards come off the top, you're going to have a 2-6 taunt left over from your Spike Ridge Steed anyway. So not really sure on the logic here, but I'm going to have to chalk it up as a mistake. Onto the Hunter, and Houndmaster's a pretty good draw. It allows you to get through these taunts and kill off the Finja. You want to be hero powering every single turn at this point if you're going to get enough damage to kill your opponent, so using the kill command this turn is not really an option. Because of that, you're going to have to trade your 2-2 and your 1-2 into the 2-3 Tauren, your 4-4 Rat Pack into the 1-4, and your remaining 1-2 into the Finja.
And that's why he takes a weaker play on the turn.
Well, is he right though? Houndmaster's pretty powerful on this Rat Pack.
You
You
might
trade
be
the
right.
4/4 into the Infested Tauren, and then full value trade the Stonehill.
Yeah. But he's gonna get the Rag Light Lord heal though, so he's fine. He's gonna heal out of this. It doesn't kill the Finja.
Leaving Finja alive here is a huge misplay. It's guaranteed to pull out at least one Murloc War Leader, as there are only 3 Murlocs left and 2 of them are War Leaders. It's going to buff up the rest of the board and allow him to value trade into your side. The 1 extra face damage from not trading is definitely not worth it. As for the Paladin now, it's just a bit of cleanup. You're out of range of a 2-turn clock of hero power kill command, so you don't need to worry about that. All you need to do is make sure you taunt up this turn and try and remove some of the board while developing threats of your own.
Right? Like Firefly should have killed Finja there.
遵循万物的规则。
Aldor on Rat Pack, denying some rat value. It's gonna put Spikeridge Steed on the Aldor Peacekeeper, because that one can't be hungry grabbed, huh?
Yes. Yep.
That's gonna be good enough.
Well. Yeah, there's gonna be no lethal outs for Dog at that point because
It's already used the other kill command. There's too much taunt in the way. Is there some deadly shot he could draw?
there
is
is
a deadly shot.
one-off deadly shot.
But then there's another taunt behind it, so it doesn't really...
Right.
There's no silences there. No.
And there's lethal set up on the back end of this. So Dog has to trade now. Because he pushed face for 1 with the Firefly instead of killing the Finja. Which was allowed Hope to get a War Leader, which set up lethal, which makes it so he can't hero power him out over a few turns. So even if there was no, like, he had an out if there was no Light Lord the other way. But he let the Finja live. And the 1 damage doesn't
And that is
matter
a-
because he needs 2 hero powers to close.
4-0 sweep for Hope, overcoming the Hungry Crab on turn 1.
Right.
The Hunter had a beautiful curve following it up, too, right?
Okay, thank you for watching episode 2 of Analyze the Pros. If you've seen any interesting matches while watching Hearthstone recently, be sure to post them here. I'm always looking for new games to review. Also, I'm playing in the HGG tournament next week on Tuesday against Thailand. Be sure to check that out on Twitch. If you've enjoyed everything, please subscribe. I'm going to be doing at least 1 video a week, so glad to see you there.